Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Arts and Crimes. I'm your host, Kelly.
And I'm Brandon.
And I'm your temporary guest co-host, Josh.
Yay. I don't think I sound too different, but I do have a bit of like a...
You sound very different. You sound like a whole different person.
Am I more sultry? Hello,
Yes.
listeners.
That was real sultry.
That breathy.
Yeah, thank you.
Very Marilyn Monroe energy going on.
Yeah. So sorry if I can't do anything about it. So
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
okay, well, yeah, we're back and better than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's start with the week check with Brandon. Brandon,
So,
how was the last 2 hours of the week?
so good. The last 2 hours? I don't know. Week check-in. What the listeners might not know is that we went like 3 weeks between the episode before last and the last episode. So we had this big space to get our week check-in. And this one is just a 1 week.
1 week, yeah.
1 week check-in. So it's actually correct to the name.
Yeah, for the first time. For the first time in forever, our week check's just a week.
And
You're
that's
doing great.
And that's it for me.
Oh, okay. You just wanted to let us know that 7 days have
been
passed.
7 days.
That's a good week check-in.
Man, I don't know. It was a crazy week at work, and I don't know what else. Dang it. So go to somebody else and I'll come back and pretend it was my first time or something. Maybe.
Okay, excellent. I am going for the first time of anyone in this podcast. Allow me to be the first to share my week with you. Okay, so this week was funny because I spoke at a conference, and it was a cybersecurity conference, but I wanted to talk about something a little different. So I read Super Forecasters, which is a fantastic book, and I did a bunch of research, and I created a presentation that's kind of like, here's how you determine where AI is going for you in your job. Like, here's a methodology from Super Forecasters that you can use in your own life, right? And the whole point of it was there's so much hype around AI. I was like, I want to kind of cut through that and be like, yep, everyone, like lots of people are out there saying it's going to destroy the world and take all the jobs, but those are the people making it. And so they have the economic incentive to tell you that, right? But I was like, but if you think about your job, you can actually figure out, okay, here's how this is really going to affect me. If you take some time and use some techniques to forecast the future a little bit, maybe you can have a better idea. And then you can use AI if you want to with less fear, right? Because you're not worried that that the world's going to blow up or whatever. Anyway, so I prepped this. I was the second speaker at the conference, and the first speaker, the keynote speaker, was a very talented guy. He's got his PhD. He leads a team that does forecasting about where AI is going. And I was like, okay, this is going to be great. And he came out and he was like, his prime example was that when the Model T was created, it made lots of new opportunities for people because there were roads and oil industry and rubber and all these new things, right? And he was like, but you know who it didn't make jobs for? Horses. The Model T took the horses' jobs.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It put horses out of work. And his point was, this time we're the horses, not the people.
So he was very a doom and gloom sort of.
It definitely started out that way, and he really hit that point. By the end, he was like, if you learn AI, in this new AI/human world, you'll be in a better shape, which isn't a bad thing. But the way he started it, I was just like, oh gosh, this guy is much more credentialed than me, and his whole point is the exact opposite of what I'm trying to say. And it really got in my head. So,
oh man,
that was super fun.
I'm sure it was good.
Man. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't think that AI is going to take everything away from us.
Did you guys ever read this historical documentary book called Dune?
The Butlerian
Jihad.
Okay,
I
Brandon.
read the Butlerian Jihad, baby. I'm prepared.
Yeah, you read the one made by not Frank Herbert.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Well, Brandon works in healthcare, which is the one area that cannot be replaced by AI.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
There's lots of areas that
Right.
can't be replaced, but healthcare, like when you look at job reports, I was going over a thing, and it was like basically all the job growth in the United States over the past year has been in healthcare, and every other sector almost has been negative.
Well, I don't know. So maybe my perspective is colored by the fact that I am in an industry that's resistant to AI taking over. I imagine like AI can and will integrate itself. And that kind of made it sound like it's sentient. But
Bum, bum, bum.
like maybe using AI to help interpret images, X-ray images or stuff like that. Like I could see there being an inclusion there. We have the Da Vinci robots that are doing surgeries. You don't even need the doctor to be in the same room, and maybe AI supplements something like that. I don't know what they're trying to add, but I think that there is definitely always going to be a fear of integrating AI too much into healthcare. People are really resistant to those new ideas and new technologies. Kind of makes me feel like we had a conversation among my kids and wife, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, talking about self-driving cars, and I'm very excited for the future and self-driving cars and not needing to drive. And what I've looked at studies wise shows that it seems rather safe. And like if you are using good technologies, like not a Tesla, but like something that's using LiDAR or something like that, rather than a camera.
Yeah.
Excuse me. One of the points that when I found this out, I thought it was really funny. But did you know that there was a time? So when elevators were first introduced, they had an operator who would stand in the elevator all day, and you'd get in and tell him what floor, and he would very professionally move the levers and get you to the right floor. And eventually, technology came out where you don't need an operator anymore. You can just push the floor that you want to go to. And there was a huge pushback on that technology. Like people didn't feel safe, like pushing a button and having the elevator go all by itself to the floor. And like where I'm sitting from, that sounds ridiculous. Like what a waste to have a human moving this lever. And of course it's safe. I've been on hundreds of elevators and stuff, and I feel like I'm sort of rambling now.
You know what'd be hilarious is if we found a building that had a old school lever operated human being elevator, and we got in it and we were like, this is so much better than buttons. What have we lost with the buttons?
One time I was in Vegas for a school conference, and it was very late when I was going back to my hotel room, and I piled in the elevator with one of my coworkers, and there was like Vegas-like characters, a guy in mostly croc skin clothing and some other cowboy guy, just like a random assortment of people. And I think I was caffeinated probably, and I just turned and I was like, I'm sure you're wondering why I called you all here for this meeting tonight. And they just looked at me, and then the door opened and they left, and I was like, good meeting, gentlemen. And that was it.
So if we want to stay with the AI theme,
We don't have to.
well,
Because we're going to talk about AI next time.
Yeah.
okay, well, I mean,
But you're welcome to.
that-
It's a very AI
you can
heavy
do
intro.
whatever with all of this stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you can
I
talk
always
about your
do.
student. If you're going to have to cut your own week
My
check.
own week check, yeah. Here's my backup week check if I do it. It's a pretty good week. Pretty good week.
So I have been using AI more at work, actually, but just like little stuff that just to make my job just a little bit easier. So like one example, I'm trying to help the clinical staff get a new product in the OR that one of our doctors feels very strongly is going to improve patient outcomes, so a worthy cause. And in the submission for it, we have what's called an SBAR, situation background analysis and recommendation. And rather than have my staff or myself write that up, it makes more sense to have the clinical people like fill that information out. And the doctor wrote a very thorough SBAR for this product and sent it to me in a PDF. And so I was looking at this and I was like, oh no, I have to transpose all of this. Like, it's a 2-page document that I'm just going to be sitting here typing and copying over to put into the form. And then I was like, hold on. And dropped it into Copilot, which is the AI that we have, and just asked it to pull the text out of this. And there it was, copy paste. That's great, but it's definitely not replacing my job.
Yeah. That's what I think AI should be for, is all the things that aren't creative and just tedious and you don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Like my dishes. I wish I could do my dishes.
Someday.
Fantastic. Well, good job on that real short, succinct week check with everybody. We should probably get to it. Let's get to it.
Okay.
So last week I teased doing a World War II lady, and I actually did it. So I fulfilled the promise.
Hooray.
So this week we're going to talk, and you may have heard of her. We're going to talk about Irena Sendler.
She's the one that was taking notes.
No.
Dang it.
That was Rose Valland. Or Valland, or however you say it. She was, we should do one on her, but honestly, just go watch Drunk History. Is it Tiffany Haddish? Okay, so have you guys heard of Irena Sendler? Not taking notes?
Nope, I've not heard of her.
Okay, well, I'll give you a teaser on what she's known for.
Excellent.
And then we'll talk about how it happened. She is known for smuggling approximately 2,500 Jewish children out of the Warsaw ghetto.
That's a lot of kids.
That was a lot. Okay, so let's talk about how she managed that, because there was a lot of this kind of happening in pockets throughout different areas. Like, this is in Poland. She's a Polish. What is that?
A Pole? She's a Polish Pole?
No,
the country?
It's called Poland.
No, her job.
Her job was, I assume it had something to do with a pole.
You know what?
She must have been like kind of light fixture change
Let's
around
just
her.
go through my notes and we'll get there. She gets a job after she's born.
Okay, here's another
All right.
What if I go through your notes for this with no context?
This is going to be terrible, because if you actually read what I wrote, the first thing is, who is you? And then
Give me the phone.
Yeah, that's actually tempting, is just to see, like, how does this go?
It's actually, like, you could pull it up.
Who is you?
All right, we're talking about Irene Adler today.
No, it's Irena Sendler.
Sendler.
It's actually Sendler. I spelled it wrong at the top. Irena Adler.
Irena Sendler.
Yeah.
Listen, now, I don't know. I have just one question for you guys to start off, okay? You know what this first question is?
What?
Who is you?
It's my notes. Keep going.
Now, Irena Sendler is most famous for smuggling approximately 2,500 Jewish children out of the Warsaw ghetto. Now, I don't know.
What a champion.
If you know, that's a lot of kids.
24,000?
2,500.
2,500.
Yeah.
Much less than the number I just said.
So, first off, I'm very excited about this bit. So, she was born February 15th in 1910. Okay, great month, great year, in Warsaw, Poland. And you know what her maiden name was? I'll tell you what her maiden name was.
I know what's written.
Her name was Irena Stanislawa Krzyzanowska, in parentheses, Shushanovska.
That's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, we got it. Irena Stanislawa Shushanovska.
There it is.
But it's spelled
Crazy.
Krzyzanowska. Anyway, so here's what's cool about Irena Sendler. First off, her name's fantastic. Too bad she gave it up when she got married. Second off, her father was a doctor and a political activist, as was her mother. So she comes from a line of politically active Polish people.
Okay, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna cut this?
No.
No, you can go.
I was gonna go until you stop, man.
I stopped.
Okay, but it is true. Because there is a couple parts in here where I'm like, tell this story. Instead of writing it down.
And that would have been great for me to do.
Yeah.
Just make it up.
Yeah. Okay, but that is true. Josh was correct in reading my notes.
I read correctly.
Yes. He was involved in like protests and was also very giving and self-sacrificing, and kind of taught that to his family. So they weren't really like...
You've said he twice now.
Yeah, her dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I follow.
Yeah. And it kind of meant that they didn't have, even though he was a doctor, they weren't a family of high means, and they weren't wealthy at all, because a lot of what was happening, because this is like kind of World War I, post-World War I time, there was a lot of hatred and anti-Semitism going on, and so people wouldn't treat Jews and they wouldn't help them. And so he was willing to do so, but he also was understanding that they didn't have a lot of means and a lot of money in a lot of places, and so he was not making them a lot of money doing that. And he would also go into places that other doctors were unwilling to go. So while he was helping some patients that had typhus, he contracted the disease. And so when Irena was 7, her father passed away from typhus. But his life and his teachings had a great effect on her, and it was kind of something that she held on to her whole life, which I think you'll see. And the other half of that was that her mother was also fiercely independent and would not accept like charity or handout from other people. And so the Jewish community actually offered to pay for Irena's medical school, but her mom refused because that was too much money. And she knew that they, didn't have a lot. And so they moved to Piotrków, and which was a heavily like war influenced area. This is when Irena was in like high school, middle school area. So she graduated from high school. She went to college. And she originally went to college for law, but switched, as most people in college do, to teaching and social work. Social work. That's what I was trying to remember. She was a social worker. While in college, she saw a lot of hostility towards the Jewish members of her community. Though she wasn't Jewish, her family was Catholic, but she was raised that everybody should be treated equally and fairly. And so she noticed these hostilities and could not stand by. So there's stories of her like stepping between attackers, of people like physically attacking Jewish members or Jewish peers at their college. And she would step in between the attacker to protect them. So very much influenced by her father and mother, obviously. So in 1931, during this time, at the age of 21, she married a childhood friend, and that's where she gets the Sendler last name. And so is Mr. Sendler, which we don't really hear a lot about, because after they got married, they immediately were like, oh, we like don't really get along. And we have like very different interests. And so he enlisted in the Polish army and left, and instead of going with him, she stayed, and like you don't hear about him again until almost the end. He's like off doing his thing and she's doing hers.
Does he come back and then they fall madly in love?
No.
And they live out their days in peace?
It's far more awkward than that.
Oh.
So, soon, there became like, attacks and riots from Nazis and German soldiers. And they started to forcefully remove Jews into concentration camps. So just to like, I guess as like a warning or something, this one we do touch a few times on some heavier subjects because we will talk a little bit, not a lot. I really kept out of it, but we will talk a little bit about some of the things that were happening to the Jewish people at this time, because it's in like she wouldn't be saving lives if she didn't have to.
I would love a history book about the Jews in World War II that avoided concentration camps. Like, listen, we're not going to talk about the ugliness. We're only going to talk to the good stuff that happened to Jews during World War II.
And that's the end of the book.
Yeah.
What I mean to say is not that we don't, because we talk about a little bit about the concentration camps and that kind of stuff, but not detailed about some of the like torture and that kind of stuff.
Okay, seems fair.
Yeah, I thought so. But you know, it's good to be informed. So if you're interested in learning more about that, there's plenty of documentaries about it. So anyways, the Nazis eventually turned their aggression towards Poland, and so as Irena graduated and became a social worker, she joined a group called Mother and Aid Society. And she worked there and gained a lot of experience and knowledge about, like, you know, the basic running an organization of social work and that kind of stuff. But the society harbored a lot of fairly socialist views, even though they tried not to be like, hey, we're socialists. There was a lot of social workers that surprisingly had socialist views. And so they were, they got a lot of heat from the German government for being socialist and were shut down. And then her next job, she found a job as a social for the social welfare department stationed out of the city of Warsaw. So when I was looking up her stuff, because I was like, it'd be nice to do a lady. I don't think we talk about ladies all that much. And they're like, she's from Warsaw and she worked in Warsaw. And I was like, oh no, that's not a good place to be. It was not a good place during the war. So even before the German invasion, the Jewish community was still treated really, really poorly. And so she became like a champion of creating innovative ways to try and help them, try to solve problems. And she became involved in this program called the Kindertransport, and they would bring youths, and there's a lot of orphans and that kind of stuff. So they would facilitate bringing youths into Britain and connect them with places that would help and support them, so they didn't just get like sent to Britain to be homeless. So they wouldn't take kids unless the Kindertransport people could find willing homes to take the kids. And so she was able during this short amount of time to find homes for about 200 kids that had been orphaned already. And so they were sent to Britain. But with the invasion of the German forces, obviously that made it so the task was quite a bit harder, but also even more needed. So September 1st, 1939, the German launched their like real invasion into Poland, like sincerely invading Poland. Because of this, the developed plans for aiding the fleeing. She had to develop plans to help aid the fleeing refugees. They also arranged to make payments for soldiers and their families so that the Polish soldiers, while they were out there, they knew that their families at least were taken care of. And for a while during this like first invasion time, the president was broadcasting his encouragement to like not give up and to fight back. But then the Germans blew up the radio tower and it caused radio silence. And I literally, I am not like a war person, but I was like, just like in video games. There's so many video games where you have to like go blow up towers, like Helldivers and Borderlands.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why is blowing up radio towers always a mission? And I was like, oh, it actually made a difference, because after these radio towers were blown up, it actually turned out that the president and his people, like his cabinet or whatever, fled. And so they left all of the people there in that area isolated and on their own. So they, with the silence of the radio, they were essentially entirely isolated, which I think would be very like mentally damaging, I think. So she tried to continue her efforts. So she turned to the Polish Socialist Party, and she worked with them to get food, money, and medicine to those that were like hiding from the Nazis. She also worked secretly to help Jews with some trying to help convince people that were better off to help those that were less well off, and was very successful, so that essentially the little amount that they had could spread further. But then it feels like it's just kind of one hit after the next for quite a while. So then the Gestapo set up at the very center of Warsaw, and the reason he did that is because there was such a large population of Jews in Poland, and they wanted access to them. And so they began forcing the Jews in Warsaw to wear the Star of David. They had to have their paperwork. They froze all of their banks and forced them to live in the ghettos in poverty. So even if they had money and had been wealthy, they weren't allowed access to their money anymore. They also were locked within the ghetto in Warsaw, and they weren't allowed to even go near any train stations or any transport, because the Nazis feared that they would escape, and they didn't want them to escape. So Irena and fellow social workers worked to smuggle whomever out they could. And so like a consistent thing that was happening was nobody really knew why anything was happening the way it was happening, like why the Nazis were refusing to let people leave or escape, and nobody really understood like what the plan was with them. They just really felt that it was bad, and they needed to do what they could to save who they could, because they weren't sure what was going to happen. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So she worked, among others, to help create fake ID papers and birth certificates to try and smuggle people out. And this is actually really dangerous and quite a feat, because the Nazis had a lot of systems in place to try and detect fakes. And I was really interested by this because there's a lot of people that created fake IDs. There was like an artist that stayed in an attic for a long time hiding, and she just created fake IDs, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of go over some of those techniques, because forgers often worked in like secret labs. Like often we think of the forgeries as like common ones was chemical alterations. There was Adolfo Kaminsky, who was a Jewish teenager and in the French Resistance, and he discovered that lactic acid could remove the stamp, the Jew stamp, from identifying cards and change the name information without damaging the paper, and so they used that. There was also recreating official seals, and so forgers could create authentic looking stamps, and they would use like salvage stuff like leftover metals, wood blocks, ink pads, essentially doing like printmaking, and creating like a small roller printing press to copy the seals and recreate them on fake papers. They manufactured watermarks, and they would go in and actually steal blank documents and fill out the blank documents, or just replace Jewish sounding names with more Aryan sounding names or French. And they would create birth certificates and baptismal records and that kind of stuff.
Do you remember the Key and Peele bit where it's them inside the house and they ask the name and he's like, Johann Schnitzel Nazi or whatever? That's what I'm picturing. They're
Yeah.
like writing. They're like, okay, your last name is like whatever Goldstein. No, that's not good. Your last name is now Krieger.
Kriegel.
Schnitzel Nazi.
Schnitzel Nazi. Yeah. But Irena actually used a different system. So she would use like actually forged. So she would forge documents that kind of created this legally airtight version of this person's new identity. And she would do that with fake IDs. She would also reassign, like, there was a lot of people dying, and so she would take their IDs, alter them a little bit, and then give it to that person so that the now living person was taking on the ID of that deceased person. And
Can you believe how desperate that must have felt? Like for her to be like, hey, I heard your husband died or whatever, like, could I have his
paperwork.
Could I have his wallet, please?
Right?
Like,
It's got to be so insane and like heartbreaking. But it also is a testament to like the like unquenchable fire of the human soul. I don't know how to put it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we find ways to survive in situations where you're like, woof, that's nuts to have to do that kind of stuff, and there's other parts that like broke my heart a little more even than this. And it's because it's just like the reality of the situation. The way that she could save lives was through utilizing whatever assets she could find, which included deceased people's paperwork. Because with that paperwork, the Nazis couldn't stop them. She had essentially created it in a way that was legal-ish, And she wasn't just helping Jews. She would help kind of anybody. People's homes were destroyed. And then she basically built up this really vast network of resources and contacts that she could kind of direct as she needed to help make sure that she was utilizing those resources to the best that she could, or like finding assets as quickly as she could so she could utilize them. And one of the things that she knew that the Germans actually hated was when people were idle. And if they saw somebody being idle, they would take them and send them to labor camps. And so she would even forge medical documents to give to people that had their like homes and their businesses bombed and they couldn't do anything else. So she would forge medical documents that said they had these crazy diseases or there was like all this stuff wrong with them, so that the Germans wouldn't want to take them and put them in their labor camps because they didn't want to deal with the like gross diseased people, which I thought was clever. I mean, everything she does is clever. So, but the paperwork wasn't always good enough, and it wouldn't always work to get people out. And the Nazis were closing in and like shoring up the exits in the Warsaw ghetto. But it was estimated that at any time there was 400,000 people confined in those Warsaw ghettos. And so she was like, well, I'm just going to have to figure out other ways to get people out. So she found a nurse costume that was like larger size than her. And she convinced the Nazis that she was a nurse and that in the name of public health and safety, she needed to go in to make sure that infectious diseases weren't spreading rapidly in this very close, sickly area. And the Nazis were like, yeah, that's gross. Go do that. And so she could get in and orchestrate a lot of things from within. And one of the like simple things that she would do is she would layer, because she was a fairly petite woman, and she would layer a bunch of clothes on underneath this oversized nurse costume. So when she got in, she could, take all the layers off and hand out sweaters and scarves and pants and skirts and that kind of stuff.
And then when she came out, the guards were like, "Did you lose some weight in the ghetto?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's real rough in there, guys."
Yeah. Can you imagine if I stayed longer than a week?
Yeah.
And these were like, she was very aware that there had to be long-term goals of getting people out, but there was also the need for like short-term relief. So I just was like impressed about her like all-encompassing sort of thought process in this, because she knew that she needed to focus on both problems, because if she wasn't helping people immediately, there wouldn't be any people around for her to save in the long run. So she specifically worked to get children out. That was, I think it was probably two-part, right? Like she wanted to get the children out, but I think the adults inside the Warsaw ghetto also wanted to get the children out. So she would sneak in, and then she would put kids in boxes and bags and load them in trunks. Sometimes she would like sedate little babies and put them in like suitcases and carry them out. And when she loaded them on trucks, the truck driver that she was working with was also part of her network. And so the truck driver would help her load all these kids onto his truck. And he bought dogs so that they would stay on the truck, so that when they're passing through checkpoints, the dogs would be barking at the Nazis to cover up any noise the children might make, and to annoy the Nazis to make them less likely to stop and search the truck.
Smart.
Yeah, so she worked closely there. The other one that was like a little bit darker but effective was she would hide the children in like stuff underneath bodies on like morgue wagons. And so they would get smuggled out underneath the dead bodies, which is like traumatizing on so many levels. I can't imagine being that kid. Can
you imagine being that parent?
No.
And being like, I don't know, it would take a lot for me to let my kids out of my sight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be in such a dire strait where you're like, oh, the best option for this child is to shove them under this stinking corpse.
Yeah. Which is insane. This part like broke my heart. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked about it. Okay. So yeah, it wasn't just that she was having to find ways to sneak them out. They had to like prepare the kids so that when they were out, they wouldn't like mess up the ruse. So like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this part really well, but like the parents would train their kids. So they'd be like, I'm not your mom. I'm just the nurse. I'm just here taking care of you. And your name isn't Ezekiel. It's like Hans. And, this lady's going to take you out and maybe you'll find your mommy out there. I'm not your mom. Like, isn't that just like the most tragic thing to save their lives? That's so nuts. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to like record that again because I can't.
It's okay. I'll take over this part.
Yeah.
Remember when you were like, this might be a little dark?
Yeah.
But I'm going to avoid the hard parts of the Holocaust.
Well, I didn't say all the hard parts. Just like the gross
parts. Yeah.
But like not the heartbreaking parts, because it's the Holocaust. There's no such thing as like not being heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Irena. So as all of this is going on, and she's working with families and trying to get as many families out as she can and as many kids out, because it's easier to get kids out than it is to get a whole family out. And so oftentimes that's why it was the kids. And as they tightened up the security, they found just new ways to sneak them out. So they began sneaking kids out. I thought this was like very clever, and like we're getting ideas for movies from this kind of stuff, because like they snuck them out through the sewer system, which is gross and not ideal, but they could get them out through the sewer systems, and then those same truck drivers would park over the manhole covers so that they could get everybody out without anybody seeing them, and then take them out of the city and get them evacuated. So as she's doing this, she heard of an underground operation that was called Zegita. And so she joined them, and she was put in charge of the Jewish children section. And it was a very heavily funded part of the operations they did. Excuse me. And it was actually really heavily funded by Jews abroad, and mostly American Jews. And so they would provide funds, and that allowed Irena to have access to better operations, better funds, more ability to find houses, and they had more ability to bribe guards, which was often how they would get kids out. They would bribe a guard to look a different way, and they could get people out of an exit or a crack in the wall or something. And so as time continued and the war continued, it became more evident that there was no surviving the Warsaw ghetto. And so the Jews that were locked inside decided that they need to join up and fight back. And I just wanted to include this because I think sometimes, like, she's definitely doing a lot to save them, but they were also working very hard to save themselves. It was just an impossible situation because these, like, underfed, malnourished, like, underarmed people fought back under these highly armed, highly trained, well-fed Germans, and actually lasted for several weeks before eventually they did lose. So Irena and the other groups, again, they couldn't do much to stop the battle going on, but they continued to try and rescue children and adults as much as they could. And they tried incredibly hard to be very secret about their stuff, but whenever you have a system that is this big, there's going to be leaks. And so eventually there was a leak from within the group. And while Irena was home celebrating with her family and friends, the Gestapo came and knocked on her door, which instead of barging in, he did knock. And that gave her enough time before answering that she could hide a bunch of the, like, names and lists and stuff that she had. Because she was also really well known for keeping excellent documentation of everybody and every child that she took, because she wanted them to be able to find their family after the war. And so she had records, which she knew was very dangerous, but she didn't want them to lose that connection to their family. And so she would bury, like, mason jars of names and stuff in these, specific places that she could come back and pick up later. But at this time, when the Gestapo came, she had papers there with her, and so she hid them on her person, on other people that were there, and she also hid some in these, like, secret trap door places under her bed. So even though the Gestapo came in and searched the house and they tore up floorboards and stuff like that, they didn't actually find any of the incriminating paperwork that they were looking for. But they still took her. And they took her to, what's the word? Interrogate? But that's not really what they did. It was far more severe than just interrogation.
They tortured her?
Yeah, basically. But she decided the moment that she was taken that no matter what they did to her, she was not going to say a single thing. And so they took her to a very famous, it was the Paviak prison, which apparently is very famous that the Nazis had taken. And they tortured her, and she never did give any information. She didn't say anything about anything. And so she was forced to work in, like, the laundry with the other female prisoners, and they had to clean the guards, like, underclothes. And they, like, it just is, like, insane. Like, people are insane. Because the guards, there were some that were, like, didn't love what was going on, and they would, like, tell the children to maybe, like, oh, now's a great time to go down to the cellar because there might be some potatoes down there. And the kids would go down and they'd find spare food. And so Irena found out about this and essentially was like, all right, we can't waste this because we don't want this very important asset to go to waste. So she organized a system where the kids would go and get the food. They bring it up. She'd have it, like, itemized. They could, like, boil it and share it among all of the prisoners so that they could, all have enough. And then other guards, if they thought the clothes wasn't clean enough, one time Irena talked about how they lined all the women up on a wall and just shot every other one, and because the clothes wasn't clean enough, and it's just like nuts.
So you know what's interesting? Can I bring up this point?
Yeah.
Something. So I was also like, while we had a little break, I was reading Wikipedia about all this, and the thing she joins, the ghetto or whatever, right, was led by this woman named Zofia Kosak Shuka, something like that. Anyway, who was a Catholic, Polish Catholic, and an author, and she wrote a leaflet that was published clandestinely called Protest in 1942, because it was right after they started liquidating the Warsaw ghetto. And what's crazy is like a lot of people think that they didn't know what was happening, right? But she came out with this, and what's interesting is she herself was anti-Semitic, and a lot of people in Poland were anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Like nobody loved the Jews
Yeah.
at that time in Poland or whatever. Anyway, but she came out, and so I'm just going to read this from Wikipedia. So some of this is a direct quote, and some of it's summarized. But it says, the world, Kosak Suka wrote, was silent in the face of this atrocity. England is silent. So is America. Even the influential international Jewry, so sensitive in its reaction to any transgression against its people, is silent. Poland is silent. Dying Jews are surrounded only by a host of pilots. Pilots, like
Pilot, like
that killed Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes. Washing their hands in innocence. Those who are silent in the face of murder, she wrote, become accomplices to the crime. She saw this largely as an issue of religious ethics. Our feeling towards Jews have not changed, she wrote. We do not stop thinking of them as political, economic, and ideological enemies of Poland. But this does not relieve Polish Catholics of their duty to oppose the crimes being committed in their country. We are required by God to protest. God who forbids us to kill. We are required by our Christian consciousness. Every human being has the right to be loved by his fellow man. The blood of the defenseless cries to heaven for revenge. Those who oppose our protest are not Catholics.
What an interesting... Like, she still sticks to her guns, but is like, but this isn't okay.
Yeah.
Like, even if I disagree with you and I still am allowed to hate you, that doesn't mean I get to kill you and take all your stuff by force.
Yeah.
It's, like, weirdly powerful.
Yeah. It's funny that, like, being in Poland must have felt so complicated.
Yeah.
But there are some people who are like, no, you just don't kill people. Like, and, you know, her, Irena, carefully maintaining records so that the children can be reunited with their parents, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's interesting that every time period feels complicated, but if you have a strong moral compass, it's not that complicated, it's just difficult.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, yeah, I think that the strong moral compass needs to be like this lady's and kind of overarching your personal belief systems is important. Like seeing right and wrong versus the human race rather than like your religious ideals or whatever is really important. Because a lot of people have hidden atrocities behind
The
morality.
name of, yeah.
Like using
religion or political views or whatever.
So I agree, Kelly, that like it's perhaps stronger what she's saying and the atrocities that she's highlighting are maybe highlighted more strongly because she's putting aside her personal views for a greater, truer truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's super cool. Thanks for finding that.
And that was the last time Josh was
So while Irena was in there, it probably was this very isolating thing because you never know like when you're gonna just randomly upset the wrong guy. So one day while she's in there, someone's like, girl, you should go to the dentist. And she's like, I don't have any bad teeth, but this feels suspicious enough that I'm going to go to the dentist. And they went, and then the dentist was like, I feel like I should probably drill into this tooth. And she's like, whatever you gotta do, man. And so he drilled into the tooth, and then when she left, he had curled up a piece of paper and hid it in the tooth he had drilled so that she could get a message from the outside that said that don't give up, we're finding ways to get you out.
I feel like
Why
there
couldn't he
has
just
to
put
be
that?
a better way to do that.
I thought the same thing. I was like, don't drill into my teeth.
I'd be so pissed. Like, why didn't you just leave that in my mouth, you big jerk?
I read that and I was like, I'm glad that she had support, and I don't know, maybe there was reasons that I'm not understanding, but just I hated that. Or like when he's real close down to her face, couldn't he just be like, people are coming to get
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old Hail Hydra,
you? Yeah.
but for good.
Yeah. So it just was like, but that's what happened. And
That's the most random way to pass a message. First off, go to the dentist. Then he's gonna drill. And in the hole he does not fill, as dentists typically do.
also now she's got a gaping hole in her tooth.
So yeah, that probably turned into a root canal later.
Yeah. Woof. I don't know. Anyways, but with that encouragement in mind, she continued her efforts to try and make sure that she was helping, spread the food.
Do you think the dentist just felt like,
He was like,
I'm
this
a
is my
dentist.
moment to
Yeah,
shine.
this is what I do. And they were like, just tell her. And she's like, well, then why did you have a dentist pass the message? If you just wanted me to use my stupid mouth like anybody, I'm going to use the tools of my profession.
When she tells them later, they're like, that's not what we told him to do.
He was like, finally the dentist time to shine.
I shall be remembered.
I can do only what dentists can do. This is what she needs.
Yeah.
I cannot get over the dentist now.
Yeah, so
He could have. What if he had drilled like the full message like across her teeth?
So when
like,
she smiles.
you're good, and he goes, now go look in the mirror, and she's like, it's backwards. I can't read it. Come back here. Let me. I got the top open still.
let me try again.
Yeah.
Oh man. So she was in there. At least I'm sure it meant a lot to know that people were actively trying to help you from the outside, because there wasn't really much you could do from the inside.
Especially dentists. You always want their support.
You do, yeah. Our dentist is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like my dentist. Although every time I go, he talks to me about your kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is there some sort of like FERPA or OSHA or something about telling me? But HIPAA?
Yeah. Oh, he tells you about my kid's teeth?
Like when they come in and like what they do and how it's going. Like,
That's so funny.
It's so funny. I'll have to cut this in case he gets in trouble. I don't want him
They're
looking.
gonna hunt him down.
And then they're going to put him in a chair, and then they're going to drill a
him
hole,
out.
and then they're going to leave a pink slip in that
Yeah.
hole.
You're fired.
Anyways,
And the irony is, then he can't fill his own hole.
yeah.
They will take his dentist. Listen. If you're a dentist and you get excommunicated from the dental community, they break your drill upon the ground.
Yeah.
Upon the stones on the street.
They're like, your staff is broken.
Yeah, and then he can't fix his mouth anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think dentists fix their own mouth very often.
Look, Brendan. We live the truth we live. Okay, so
That's where you're wrong, Brandon. That's the first test to becoming a dentist. You gotta drill your own teeth.
yeah. That's how a lot
They're like, this is the only way you'll ever understand what it's like to be a patient.
yeah.
And he's like, no, you could just do mine. He's like, no, you must do it to yourself. I'm gonna write like, did you ever watch The Beekeeper or whatever it was with Jason Statham?
No, but I wanted to.
It was about how he was an assassin and everything had to be a bee pun. That was the whole movie. It was like, we protect the hive. And I was just thinking the dentists are the same.
But they probably are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue. Sorry. I know.
So she goes back about, making sure people survive in there and stuff. And something that was a common occurrence was the guards would call somebody's name and they would get taken, and that's how you know that person was executed. And so if your name was called, it was kind of like a, well, this is it for me kind of moment. And so Irena was in there and they called her name and she was like, well, this is it for me. And she went into the back room and the guard.
I think we're like, the dentist wants to see you again. And she went, no.
Not again.
I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't bring up the dentist. And I lasted less than a minute. Anyway.
It's okay. So she goes in the back and the guard opens the door and he's like, get on out of here. And just let her leave. And so she was like, not one to hesitate. She just took off running and eventually caught up with her people and found out that they had just bribed the guard to let her out. And so not one to be idle, she created her own fake documents so that she could go under a different name and continue her work. While she was doing all this and escalating her efforts, she had to remain really hidden. And her mother passed, and she wasn't able to go to that funeral. But she also learned that her husband, remember that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was still alive.
Hooray.
But he was a prisoner of war.
Oh, not hooray.
Yeah, less hooray. But he's still alive, so there was at least that. And then, so she continued her battle, trying to make sure that she was getting as many people out as she could. This was towards the end of the war, and so they could really up their like bribe game because a lot more soldiers were taking bribes because it was kind of clear the direction.
They saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah. And so they were taking more bribes, so they were starting to get more and more people out as they could.
They saw the writing on the piece of paper inserted into
Inside
the
the
tooth
tooth.
by the dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah. That famous phrase.
And she, even while she was working with this, she got stabbed in the leg by a German soldier. And she like fixed herself up and then was like, I'm good, and kept going. Until finally on January 17th, 1945, the Warsaw Ghetto was liberated by the Red Army. Which is like its whole own thing because the Red Army purposefully didn't help Poland liberate themselves because they wanted to take credit for the victory. So they sat and watched until Poland fully lost and then stepped in so that they could have power over Poland. But that's a whole different thing. But the Warsaw Ghetto was liberated. And she continued her work efforts until the war ended. And then she was able to locate the names and continue her efforts to try and reconnect as many children with as many family members as she could find. She also learned that her husband, who was still alive, got out. And they met up and they saw each other and they're like, nah, I'm not into you. They got a divorce. And then she married another gentleman. They had 2 kids. And then later he passed. And then she called back up her ex-husband and was like, maybe? And he was like, maybe. And they got remarried again. And then 10 years later, they were like, but not really. And they got divorced again. So she remained single, but continued to work as a social worker until she retired in the 80s. But remained connected to the network until she passed in May of 2008 at the age of 98.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that is Irena Sendler. Nuts.
It's pretty hardcore.
So yeah, I think it's quite a motivating story that we can make. Even the smallest of people can make a difference. Like hobbits and women.
Yeah.
And hobbit women.
And hobbit women. What'd you guys think?
I have a new respect for dentistry.
Wow. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for waking my cow lamb. Go do some art. Don't do any crimes.
All right. We're done.
Bye.
Goodbye.
So long.
One band that came up like in my sphere of whatever was Him, H-I-M.
Oh, spelled just like the word.
Yes.
Well, it could have been Hymn.
Yeah. I'm just being clear. They're all capital too. All right. Yeah. Anyway.
Even better.